The trip had not been planned. It began with a message in a forgotten group chat, a simple line from Daniel, "It's been too long. Let's do something." No one expected it to matter. No one imagined it would become the last weekend they would ever spend together. Summer was ending, and the first signs of autumn crept into the coastal town where they all grew up. The air held that strange in-between temperature, warm enough for short sleeves, cool enough to remind the body that colder days were coming. For most people, it was just another Friday. But for the group, it was a reunion years overdue. Daniel arrived first at the beach house his family rented every year when they were younger. He stood on the porch, looking out at the familiar coastline, remembering the nights they slept in tents by the water and talked about everything they didn't understand about life. He wondered if this weekend could bring even a fraction of that back. One by one, the others arrived. Lucas, loud as always, pulling up in a dented pickup that sounded like it shouldn't still run. He stepped out with a grin that made the lines around his eyes show, lines of someone who had seen more responsibility than freedom lately. Maya came next, slower, quieter, wearing oversized sunglasses that hid the exhaustion underneath. She had changed the most. Life had placed weight on her shoulders that she never spoke about. And then Jonah, walking from the bus stop with a backpack slung over one shoulder, that old notebook he carried everywhere tucked under his arm. He still collected strange stories, ocean myths, sailor tales, shipwreck rumors. He waved with that half-smile of his, neither shy nor confident, just present. Daniel stepped forward to greet them, and what followed was the kind of laughter that sounded like relief. The kind that reminded them they had once belonged to something bigger than the routines that now controlled their lives. They spent the first afternoon cooking together the way they used to, burning food, arguing about seasoning, making fun of each other's techniques. Lucas insisted he could still grill as well as he did in college, but the charred streaks on the meat said otherwise. Maya rolled her eyes. Jonah suggested they order something instead. Daniel insisted they keep the tradition alive. By sunset, they sat outside in old plastic chairs facing the water. The waves rolled in and out with slow, steady breaths, as though the ocean itself were listening to them. Jonah flipped open his notebook. Daniel groaned, already knowing what was coming. "You still carry that thing?" he asked. "It carries me," Jonah replied, tapping the cover. "Whole new section on ocean mysteries." Lucas leaned forward. "Tell one. But make it good. We didn't come all the way out here for bedtime stories." Jonah nodded and began reading a tale about a 19th century crew that vanished after sailing into a patch of unnaturally cold water. No wreckage. No bodies. Just a drifting ship and a story that faded over time. Maya shivered. "Why do you always pick the dark ones?" "Because the ocean hides things," Jonah answered calmly. "And we only ever see the surface." The wind picked up slightly, moving the firelight around their faces. Daniel looked at his friends, older, different, more fragile somehow, and felt a quiet fear that this moment was temporary, that they were all slipping into separate lives with no guarantee they would cross again. Lucas raised a bottle. "To being alive," he said. "To surviving adulthood," Daniel added. "To escaping it for a weekend," Maya said. Jonah paused before lifting his own. "And to whatever the ocean decides to show us tomorrow." They laughed, not knowing that line would become the spine of their fate. As the night grew darker, the sky opened into a deep, star-filled dome. They sprawled out across the porch, listening to the waves. Their conversations drifted, old jokes, failed relationships, things they wished they had done differently. It felt like the world had paused just for them. At some point, Jonah pointed to a distant buoy blinking steadily in the dark. "Do you ever think," he asked softly, "that the ocean waits for certain people? That some stories choose you?" Lucas scoffed. "Yeah. Like the story where we wake up tomorrow, get in a boat, and drink ourselves stupid while watching whales." Daniel smiled. "Actually, I rented one. For tomorrow." They all turned to him. "You did what?" Maya asked. Daniel shrugged. "I figured, why not? We're finally all here. Thought we could explore a bit. See the islands. Maybe spot some wildlife." Lucas clapped him on the shoulder. "That's exactly why you're the glue, Danny." Jonah looked back at the ocean with an unreadable expression. "There's a saying," he murmured. "If the water is calm before dawn, something is moving beneath it." Maya exhaled sharply. "Jonah, can you not?" He closed his notebook. "Sorry. Force of habit." But the words lingered, calm before dawn. They talked until their voices slowed, until laughter became whispers, until the fire burned down to glowing embers. When they finally went inside, leaving the porch empty, the sound of the waves filled the silence. A gentle breeze moved across the coastline. The moonlit water stretched out into darkness, carrying secrets older than every name carved into Jonah's notebook. The next morning, they would head out onto that water, happy, excited, unprepared. And none of them knew that the story waiting for them was not one they would choose, or shape, or escape. It would be the last weekend they remembered the ocean as a place of beauty. Because after tomorrow, they would learn what it means for the sea to turn its gaze toward them. And what it means when something beneath that calm surface decides to rise. Morning came softly, with a pale gold light spilling across the coastline. The air was cool but warming, and the breeze carried the faint scent of salt that always signaled a good day on the ocean. Daniel was the first to wake. He stood on the porch again, watching the tide roll gently across the sand, and felt a quiet sense of hope. Maybe this trip would be exactly what they all needed. One by one, the others emerged from the house. Lucas stepped out stretching, his hair a mess, his voice still half asleep. Maya slipped outside wrapped in a thin sweater, blinking away the last remnants of dreams she would never remember. Jonah came last, notebook in hand as always, flipping through pages as if trying to select the right story for the day. When Daniel announced that the boat was waiting by the dock, a spark returned to everyone's eyes. There was something universal about leaving solid land behind, something that made even the heaviest worries feel distant. The walk to the marina was filled with easy laughter and the kind of teasing that only old friends could give. Lucas argued about who should drive the boat. Maya insisted she wasn't touching the wheel. Jonah took pictures of everything, the seagulls swooping low, the sun cutting across the water, the wooden planks creaking beneath them. At the end of the dock waited a small but sturdy vessel, the type built for sightseeing tours and short coastal trips. White paint slightly worn, ropes neatly coiled, engine humming softly as if eager to be taken into open water. A local fisherman stood beside it, arms crossed, watching them approach. His beard was thick, his skin sun-worn, and his eyes carried that familiar mix of kindness and caution that only long-time seafarers held. "You folks heading out far?" he asked. Daniel shook his head. "Just around the islands. Maybe see some wildlife." "Whales have been active this week," the fisherman said, glancing at the horizon. "Good sightings. But remember, beautiful as they are, the ocean decides the terms." Lucas smirked. "We'll stay respectful." The fisherman studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Respect's good. Fear's better." He paused before adding, "If something breaches too close, stay calm. Panic's the real danger." The sentence carried weight. Jonah's eyes sharpened as if filing those words away. They boarded the boat, the wooden deck shifting gently beneath their feet. The engine rumbled awake, and Daniel eased the vessel away from the dock. The shoreline slipped behind them, shrinking into a soft strip of sand and trees. Out on open water, everything felt wider, freer. The ocean spread in every direction, shimmering blue and silver. Sunlight danced on the surface in broken patterns. Maya leaned over the railing, letting the wind lift her hair. Lucas stood near the bow, arms open, laughing like he hadn't in years. Jonah sat quietly in the shade, watching the horizon with the eyes of someone searching for something he couldn't explain. As the boat moved farther out, the scenery shifted from coastal civilization to raw nature. Cliffs rose from the water like the bones of the earth. Seabirds circled overhead, calling out to one another. The air grew cleaner, wilder. They spotted their first dolphins within 20 minutes, sleek bodies cutting through the water, moving effortlessly alongside the boat. Maya gasped, holding onto the railing with both hands. Lucas leaned over dangerously far just to get a closer look. Daniel slowed the boat, letting the dolphins play in the wake. Jonah whispered, almost to himself. They always come in pairs or groups. Never alone. The dolphins eventually darted away, disappearing beneath the waves in a glimmer of silver. Next came a cluster of small rocky islands, jagged and beautiful, surrounded by water so clear they could see kelp swaying beneath the surface. They circled one of the islands slowly. Sunlight caught the rocks and made them shine like molten bronze. Lush green patches crowned the peaks, untouched by human hands. Maya pointed toward a small arch carved naturally into the stone. That looks like something out of a fantasy movie. Lucas took a photo. We should camp there one day. Jonah shook his head. Uninhabited islands always have stories. Maya raised an eyebrow. Good ones or bad ones? Depends on who survived, Jonah answered. They all laughed, not noticing how Jonah's gaze lingered on the dark cracks between the rocks. The day unfolded like a memory being written in real time. Every sound was crisp, the rhythmic churn of the engine, the soft splash of waves, the distant cry of birds. The wind was warm, carrying hints of freedom that none of them had felt in too long. Daniel turned off the engine at one point, letting the boat drift. They floated in still water, surrounded by nothing but sky and sea. The silence was gentle and alive, a reminder of how small they were compared to the world around them. Feels like the ocean is smiling, Lucas said, repeating what the fisherman had said earlier. Maya closed her eyes. It's perfect. Jonah dipped his hand into the water. Warm, he murmured. Warmer than usual. They ate lunch aboard the boat, simple sandwiches, fruit, chips, while the water lapped softly against the hull. The conversation was effortless. Stories overlapped. Jokes returned. For the first time in months, they all looked like themselves again. But sometime after noon, the atmosphere changed. It was subtle at first. The wind slowed until it was barely a whisper. The waves flattened, becoming unnaturally smooth. Birds that had once filled the sky disappeared without warning. Even the engine's hum felt quieter when Daniel restarted it. Lucas was the first to notice. Anyone else feel like it suddenly got still? Maya scanned the horizon. Where did all the birds go? Jonah stood up, staring at the water below. Sometimes nature pauses when something big is moving. Daniel looked at him. A whale. Maybe, Jonah said, though his expression showed doubt. Or something else. The boat drifted across a patch of water that shone darker than the rest, like a stain beneath the surface. The temperature dipped, not cold but noticeably cooler, and Jonah stepped back instinctively. Lucas rolled his shoulders. You're overthinking it. It's just the ocean doing ocean things. But Jonah didn't respond. He watched the dark patch passing beneath them, eyes narrowing as though he felt something none of the others could sense. The stillness deepened. The silence grew thicker. Daniel exhaled slowly. All right, let's head toward the whale grounds. Maybe that'll break the mood. He pushed the throttle forward, and the boat began moving again, cutting through the now motionless water. No one realized it then, but the moment the ocean became silent was the moment the ocean began paying attention. It was still a perfect day. Blue sky, warm sun, friends smiling. But beneath the drifting boat, in a depth no camera could capture, something stirred for the first time in years. Something massive. Something old. Something aware. It would begin with a whale. But the whale would not be the danger. It would only be the warning. For a while, the silence followed them like a shadow. Daniel steered the boat toward the deeper waters where whales were often seen, doing his best to dismiss the sudden stillness. Beside him, Lucas tried to lighten the mood with jokes, but his voice didn't carry the same energy. Maya wrapped her sweater tighter around her shoulders, feeling a faint chill that didn't match the sunny sky. Jonah kept glancing at the water as though listening to something no one else could hear. Several minutes passed before the ocean finally seemed to breathe again. A distant ripple broke the smooth surface. Then another. A low, resonant thump echoed somewhere far below them, vibration more than sound. Maya straightened. What was that? Whales communicate through low frequencies, Jonah murmured. That could have been one. Lucas grinned. See? Nature show, not horror movie. But Daniel wasn't convinced. He felt the vibration in the steering wheel, subtle but steady, like the heartbeat of something enormous. Before he could say anything, they spotted it. A burst of mist shot into the air ahead of the boat. White, glimmering in the sunlight, unmistakable. A whale's breath. Maya gasped. Lucas cheered. Even Jonah allowed himself a small smile. Daniel slowed the engine and drifted forward, eyes widening as the whale surfaced fully. It was massive, longer than the boat. Its skin a mosaic of grays and scars. It lingered at the surface, rolling slightly, revealing the smooth curve of its back and the vast fins slicing the water. For a moment, all tension vanished. They were children again, awestruck by the enormity of the world. "It's beautiful," Maya whispered. Jonah leaned over the railing, notebook forgotten at his feet. "This close, it's rare to get this close." Lucas pulled out his phone, laughing with excitement. "I'm posting this. We'll go viral before dinner." The whale dove gently, its tail rising in a slow, majestic arc before disappearing beneath the waves. Ripples spread outward, rocking the boat softly. Daniel exhaled. "All right, that made the trip." They waited, watching for another surfacing. The ocean around them sparkled, alive with movement again. But beneath the brightness, something darker stirred, something none of them noticed until it was too late. Another low vibration thrummed through the deck. This one stronger. Closer. Jonah's expression shifted instantly. He stepped back from the railing. "That wasn't the same whale," he said. Lucas laughed. "How would you even?" Then the water directly beside the boat bulged upward. Not ripples. Not waves. A rise. A swelling. A pressure building beneath the surface. Daniel instinctively pulled the throttle back. "Hold on." The water convulsed. And the whale erupted from the ocean. It burst upward with impossible force, an explosion of gray mass and white spray, its entire body lifting into the air. The boat tipped violently, knocking Lucas to his knees and nearly throwing Jonah overboard. The air filled with the sound of rushing water, groaning wood, and the deafening crash of a creature the size of a bus defying gravity. Maya screamed. Daniel grabbed the wheel instinctively, though it offered no control over the chaos unfolding. The whale's body twisted midair, too close, far too close, and for a split second, Daniel locked eyes with the underside of the giant, its barnacled skin dripping seawater like tears. Time slowed. The whale began to fall. "Get down!" Daniel shouted. But there was no time. The creature slammed into the side of the boat with a force that shattered wood like glass. The hull cracked. Water surged in. Half the boat dipped instantly, dragging everything toward the sea. Lucas was thrown backward into the railing, which splintered under the impact. Jonah disappeared from view, pulled by the sudden tilt of the deck. Daniel reached for Maya, but the floor dropped beneath them, and they both fell as the boat lurched. The ocean swallowed them. Underwater, everything was a blur of bubbles, debris, and the cold shock of sudden immersion. Daniel struggled upward, lungs burning, heart pounding. He broke the surface with a gasp and whipped his head around. Pieces of the boat floated everywhere. Planks, life jackets, shattered equipment. Maya surfaced beside him, coughing and panicked. "Where's Lucas?" she cried. A shout answered from several meters away. Lucas clung to a broken section of railing, kicking to stay above water. His forehead was bleeding, but he looked alive. Daniel turned in circles. "Jonah! Jonah!" No answer. He dove once, twice, searching through the murky water. On the third dive he spotted movement, a hand reaching up from below. Daniel swam with everything he had and grabbed Jonah's wrist, pulling him to the surface. Jonah gasped, sputtering. "Something pulled me down." "It was the breach," Daniel said, though he didn't fully believe it. Because as he said it he noticed something strange. The water, though churning with wreckage, was still much too calm. The waves were gentle, almost delicate, as if the ocean itself were absorbing the violence rather than reacting to it. Maya clung to a floating cooler, shaking. Why did it breach here? Why that close? Jonah wiped water from his eyes. It shouldn't have. Whales avoid boats. They breach when they're feeding, communicating, or escaping. Lucas swam toward them, gripping his broken plank. Escaping? Escaping what? Jonah didn't answer, because all of them felt it at the same moment. A deep vibration. Stronger than before. Closer. Not the rhythmic call of a whale. Something heavier. Slower. Older. The whale that struck them surfaced again about 50 meters away, thrashing wildly, not at them, but at the water around it, as if trying to flee something beneath the surface. Maya stared, eyes wide with terror. It's scared. Daniel followed its movements, heart pounding. And then he saw it. Not a creature. Not a shadow. Just a distortion, something enormous shifting far below, darkening the water in a wide arc. Lucas whispered, "What is that?" The whale dove sharply, fleeing into deeper water. And the distortion followed. Jonah's voice trembled. The whale wasn't attacking us. It was trying to get away. Daniel's blood ran cold. The breach wasn't the threat. It was the warning. The real danger was still beneath them. The ocean settled into an eerie quiet, the kind that did not belong to daylight. Bits of the shattered boat drifted outward in a widening ring, pushed gently by a current that felt too steady, too deliberate. Daniel held onto a floating section of hull, his knuckles white, eyes flicking from one friend to another just to confirm they were still there, still breathing. Jonah clung beside him, shivering not from the cold but from something deeper, something instinctive. His chest rose and fell in quick, sharp breaths, each inhale a battle against panic. Lucas kicked toward them, dragging a long piece of wood that barely supported his weight. His face was pale, streaked with seawater and blood. Maya held onto a cooler that bobbed weakly beneath her, her hair plastered to her face, her lips trembling. All of them rotated in the water, searching, listening, expecting the whale to return or another wave to rise. But the ocean around them seemed to wait. Too still. Too watchful. Daniel forced himself to speak, though his voice cracked. "We stay together. No one drifts. No one goes under." No one answered. They were listening to something else. A low vibration passed beneath them, so deep it felt more like a tremor in the bones than a sound. Maya's fingers tightened around the cooler. "That wasn't the whale," she whispered. "Another pulse. Stronger. Closer." Jonah swallowed hard. "It's below us." Lucas let out a shaky laugh. "You don't know that." But he did. They all did. The water darkened beneath Daniel's feet. Not shadow, not light distortion. An entire mass of darkness, shifting slowly, as if circling them just out of sight. Maya's eyes filled with tears. "Daniel, what is that?" He didn't answer. He couldn't. His mind was trying to piece together what he saw, what he thought he saw. A motion far too wide to be a single animal. A shape without a defined edge. Like the ocean itself was moving, bending inward, drawn toward the center of something huge. Jonah forced his voice steady. "Whales breach when they're running. Whatever scared it." He didn't finish. He didn't need to. Lucas clung to his plank like it was the last solid thing left in the world. "Okay, no one freak out. It's just a current. Strong undercurrents can drag." But then the current grabbed him. It wasn't violent. It wasn't a yank. It was worse, slow, invisible, cold. Something pulled the water out from under him like a breath drawn in. Lucas's body slipped lower, his plank dipping beneath the surface. "Lucas!" Daniel lunged forward, catching his wrist. Water spiraled around their legs. A slow vortex, silent and patient, like a hand closing around them. The ocean's surface remained glass-smooth, betraying nothing of the force pulling downward. Lucas struggled, kicking frantically, eyes wide. "Something's got me." Daniel tightened his grip, muscles burning. "Kick upward." Jonah and Maya swam to help, grabbing Lucas's arms. Together, they heaved, pulling him free. The vortex loosened. Lucas jerked upward, gasping, clinging to them like a drowning man returning to life. Daniel's voice shook. "We need to move. Now." But move where? They were surrounded by open sea. No coastline in sight. No debris large enough to hold them all. Only endless water. Another pulse rolled below them, stronger than before. The surface quivered in a perfect circle, as though something enormous brushed the underside of the waves. Jonah's voice trembled. "It's rising." The depth beneath them changed, shallowing, darkening. The water lifted subtly, as though the world beneath it were swelling. Daniel grabbed Maya's arm, pulling her close. "We swim," he said. Toward that, he pointed to a distant piece of the boat still floating upright. It was barely large enough for one, but it was direction. It was purpose. They swam in unsteady strokes, kicking hard, tearing through the water. But the ocean responded. A ripple, circular, massive, formed behind them. Something displaced the sea. Maya screamed. Daniel turned in time to see a dome-like shape break the surface for a split second. A smooth, immense curve, too large to comprehend, then gone before the mind could fully register it. Lucas froze. "Oh my God, that's not real. That can't be real." Jonah's voice dropped to a whisper. "It's not a whale." Daniel grabbed Lucas's arm. "Keep moving." They swam harder, fueled by pure terror, lungs burning. The water pulsed again, closer, each beat of the ocean like a countdown. And then it happened. A suction wave pulled downward, dragging all of them several inches beneath the surface. Like gravity had shifted. Like something beneath them inhaled. Maya went under first. Daniel saw her slip beneath the waves, her scream muted instantly. He dove after her, fingers slicing through the water. The world beneath was darker than it should have been, as though something blocked the sunlight. He caught her arm and pulled upward, breaking through the surface together. Her voice was fragmented by panic. "Something touched my leg. Something touched me." Daniel held her close. "Stay with me. Don't look down." But Lucas looked down. And what he saw broke something inside him. A shape, vast and smooth, slid beneath him, just feet below the surface. No eyes. No fins. No features. Just an expanse of dark matter moving with purpose, soundless and massive enough to warp the water around it. Lucas's body locked. His voice cracked into a whisper. "That's not possible." The surface tension broke behind them, forming a swirl, as though the creature, or whatever it was, had circled back. Jonah gasped, eyes wide with realization. It followed the whale. It wasn't chasing us. Daniel's heart pounded. Then why is it here now? Jonah turned to him, and in his expression Daniel saw the truth. "It's curious," Jonah whispered. "It's watching us." Another pulse rolled beneath them, deep, resonant. Something ancient. Something aware. Maya clung to Daniel, sobbing. Lucas whispered prayers. Jonah stared into the water, mesmerized by terror. Daniel forced strength into his voice. "We stay together. We stay above water. We do not panic." But he knew, panic had already gripped them. And the ocean could feel it. The shape beneath them slowed, hovering. Waiting. The whale had been the warning. The breach had been the escape attempt. And now, they floated above something the ocean had hidden for longer than human memory. Something that was no longer sleeping. Something that had risen to meet them. The sea held them in a silence deeper than fear itself. The surface remained disturbingly calm, not a ripple betraying the colossal presence circling beneath. Daniel felt Maya trembling against him, her breaths sharp and uneven. Lucas clutched his drifting planks so tightly his knuckles were bone-white. Jonah stared downward with an expression that was not panic but something quieter, resignation, maybe, or understanding. The shadow under them moved again. Not fast. Not violent. Just a slow, deliberate shift, as though the ocean were adjusting itself around a living continent. Maya found her voice in a broken whisper. "It's waiting." Daniel held her tighter. "We keep swimming. There's a piece of the boat ahead. We just need to reach it." But even he could barely convince himself. The fragment of the boat drifted about 10 meters away, turning gently with the current. It wasn't big, maybe enough for one person to cling to safely. But it was something solid, something that wasn't water, wasn't alive, wasn't watching them from below. They began moving toward it, each stroke a battle against the paralysis creeping into their limbs. Every time their feet kicked into open space, a fresh jolt of terror surged through them. Behind them, the water pulsed. A low, resonant thump, like the ocean exhaling. Lucas turned back. His voice broke open. "It's following." Something brushed his foot. He screamed, thrashing wildly, and the surface cracked into ripples. Daniel spun toward him, but before he reached Lucas, the water beneath Lucas dipped, just a few inches, but enough to pull him downward. "Don't let go!" Daniel shouted. Lucas clawed at the plank. "It's pulling me, something's pulling." Another pulse rolled through the water. Jonah grabbed Lucas's arm from the other side. "Kick upward. Fight it." Lucas kicked, but the water underneath seemed to thicken, dragging him slower and slower. His legs disappeared into the dark gradient below. "Lucas!" Maya cried, her voice breaking. Daniel dove partly under, grabbing Lucas around the chest. Together, he and Jonah heaved with everything they had. The resistance was immense, like pulling against a current that wanted him more than it wanted to let go. For one horrifying second, Lucas's head sank beneath the surface. Then he shot upward with a gasp, breaking free of the invisible pull. The moment he resurfaced, the resistance vanished. Whatever held him, released him. They dragged him onto the larger drift of wood, and Lucas collapsed, chest heaving, eyes wide and unfocused. "It was cold," he whispered. "Not the water. Something else. Something cold wrapped around my legs." Daniel didn't ask what he meant. He didn't want to know. They needed to move. The drifting hull section was closer now, 5 meters. 4, 3. But the shadow moved with them. When Jonah finally spoke, his voice carried an eerie calm. "The whale breached because it was running from this. Whatever this is." Lucas nodded weakly. "It wasn't attacking us. It was trying to escape," Jonah finished. Another pulse rose from the deep. This one was different, longer, vibrating through the water in a slow, rhythmic pattern. A call. Jonah froze. "It's communicating." "With what?" Maya whispered. Jonah lifted his eyes to Daniel, and in them Daniel saw something he would never forget. Something ancient, dreadful, but horribly certain. "It's communicating with itself," Jonah said softly. As if responding to his words, the water beside them bulged upward. Just slightly, just enough to warp the surface. Maya screamed. Daniel grabbed her arm before she drifted. The bulge sank. The ocean flattened. Stillness returned. They reached the broken hull piece. Daniel hoisted Maya up first. She crawled onto it, shaking uncontrollably. Jonah pushed Lucas up next. Daniel followed last, gripping the edge and pulling himself beside them. The 4 of them lay there, soaked, bruised, breathless. Their makeshift raft rocked gently. For a moment, just a moment, they felt a flicker of hope. Until they heard it. A low, echoing groan from the deep. Not mechanical. Not animal. Something else. Something too large to fit inside any known category of life. Jonah lifted his head. "It's rising again." The water directly in front of them darkened, not like a shadow passing beneath, but like the ocean itself was deepening in one specific spot. A circular swell appeared. Not large, not violent, but impossibly precise. As though the sea were being pushed upward by something broad and smooth. Maya sobbed. "No, no, no, no." Daniel braced himself. The swell grew, forming a dome beneath the surface. A shape without edges. Without features. Just a mass so vast it distorted the water above it. Then it sank again. Quietly. Softly. As if satisfied. Jonah exhaled a shaky breath. "It's letting us go." Daniel wasn't sure whether to believe him, but the water around them slowly began to move again, not pulling down but pushing them gently, almost guiding them. A current carried them. Not backward. Forward. "Look," Daniel said. The current flowed toward the distant coastline, too far to swim, but close enough that the waves might deliver them eventually. The shadow stayed behind. Hours passed. The sun dropped lower. Creature, whatever it was, never resurfaced. But the sense of being watched never fully left. When a rescue vessel finally spotted them drifting and pulled them aboard, the 4 survivors collapsed in exhaustion. They told the rescuers about the whale. About the breach. About the accident. But not about the shadow. Not about the pulses. Not about the cold grip around Lucas's legs. Not about the dome of rising water. Not about the call that vibrated through the sea like something older than memory. They tried once, but the rescuers exchanged doubtful looks. Whales breach. Boats capsize. That part made sense. The rest did not. Later that night, in a quiet hospital room, Maya asked Daniel, "Why didn't you tell them?" Daniel looked out the window at the dark ocean beyond. Because even he didn't fully believe it. He turned back to her and answered softly, "The ocean doesn't let you tell certain truths." Jonah closed his notebook. Lucas stared into nothing. Maya wiped tears from her cheeks. Daniel spoke again, voice trembling. The whale wasn't the danger. It was the warning. The room fell silent. Outside, the tide receded and returned, each wave a breath of something that had never been meant to rise so close to the surface. Something still out there. Still moving. Still listening. And the truth they carried, the one they would never speak again, rested like a weight on their chests. The ocean had spared them. Not because it was merciful, but because it was curious. And curiosity can always return.